can't walk with him if I don't trust him. Because sometimes he'll say, shut it down, and I have to trust him. Sometimes he'll say, leave, and I have to trust him. Sometimes he'll say, stay, and I have to trust him. Sometimes he'll say, hold your tongue, what you want me to do. And this man who was a beggar, he says, I want to see. You would think that he would ask for provision, right? I'm a beggar, so give me something so I don't have to beg anymore. No, he said, I want to see, because if you fix my sight problem, I won't have a begging problem anymore. Good evening. I am pastor and life strategist, Micah, Mr. Mindset Right, and this is Total Transformation. Thank you for joining us. Please greet us all and tell us where you're viewing from in the comment section and the chats. While you're coming in, please take a moment to like this, to tag others in it, and to share this video. If you're watching on YouTube, you may have to minimize the chat box in order to get the link to send this to your friends and family. But whatever you have to do, share. Please do me a great favor and share this with at least 2 people, all right? You can send it as a text, all right? And say it, man, if I say something, when I say something that you agree with. You can say it verbally on the other side of your device. You can say it by typing the word in the comment section, or you can heart it if you're watching on social media. Please, everyone, take out your Bibles, your iPads, your tablets, your iPhones, your smartphones. I'd like for everyone to be reading along and to be taking copious notes. Well, are you ready for the word? Are you ready for the word? I have something to say. I pray that you're ready to listen. I'm ready to teach. I pray that you are now ready to learn. Let me see somebody in the comment section, somebody in the chat, say, I'm ready for the word. Let me see that. Say, I'm ready for the word. As a Christian community, our theme for this year, 2024, and potentially the next 2 or 3 years is radical. We're attempting to settle this issue of identity, y'all, which for many contemporary Christians is a great struggle. I feel impressed of the Lord to push us into the degree of living that I'm calling radical living, meaning that we're not supposed to be weird, but we're supposed to be different. It's extremely important for Christians to get this, that we are called to be different, and you can only get different results when you're willing to live your life differently. And the word that we're using to describe how differently we're supposed to live our lives is the word radical, because it's a word that accurately and adequately describes us. Radical doesn't mean extreme. It means vastly different from what is normal, traditional, or ordinary. And if we objectively observe what is going on in culture nowadays, the truth of the matter is we don't really want normal, do we? You think you want what cultural icons have, but if you look at the trajectory of their lives, you don't really want that either. Normal isn't working. It's overextended, it's overwhelmed, it's narcissistic, it's egotistical, it's self-absorbed, it's unhappy, it's materialistic, gaining more but thinking less of ourselves. You don't want that. Y'all, Jesus wasn't normal. Zacchaeus didn't climb in a tree to see something that was ordinary. People didn't climb on the roof of a house, dig a hole in the roof of that house, and let their friend down in the hole of the roof of that house to get to a man that was ordinary. Did you hear what I just said? Are you hearing me today? We want the radical life, but in order to get the radical life, you have to have radical faith, because God will allow you to live on whatever level you settle for. Your prophetic potential is simply potential. Your prophetic potential is simply potential. So the first thing I have to do to build my faith, we're going to build our faith by reintroducing you to the God we're supposed to put our faith in. Because it's not how much faith I have, it's who I have my faith in, right? So I need to be reintroduced to the God I need to put my faith in. All right. So it's not just how much faith, it's who it is in, right? Because we know God's person, but we don't know his names. We know he's God, but that's not his name. He's Jehovah blank, right? New Testament believers, we use the name Jesus because Jesus encompasses all, right? So when we say Jesus, we say Jireh. When we say Jesus, we say Shalom. We say Rohi and Roha. That's the name that's above every name. When I say Jesus, I say it all. Come on, somebody say that name. You know, some of you just looking at the screen, you didn't say it. You won't even say Jesus' name. Come on, somebody say his name. Come on, say the name, say Jesus. So we've been introduced to his name, right? This is the fourth lesson of this series. Actually, it's the fifth, including the New Year's Eve message. And today I'm introducing a new name. Today, we're jumping right into it. No gravy, no vegetables, just straight for the meat, okay? The title of today's message is What's His Name, Part 3. What's His Name, Part 3. And I know that we have a lot of diversity in this Christian community, diversity in religious backgrounds. Some of you went to church every Sunday growing up, and some of you were unchurched. All right, you never went to church. Some of you might have had agnostic parents. We have educational diversity, economic diversity, you name it. But despite our differences and distinctions, there's a reality that we all wrestle with, and that's brokenness. The person on Wall Street has brokenness. The person living on the street has brokenness. The person with multiple degrees has brokenness, and the person who doesn't even have their GED has brokenness. It's the reality that exists in every life. And the counselee has the brokenness and the counselor has brokenness. And because this is a reality, there is someone we need to be introduced to. And that's my assignment today. His name is Jehovah Rapha. He is the Lord who heals. My assignment today is to expand your understanding of God so you will see him as more than just your creator, as more than just your provider, and more than just your shepherd, if we talked to over the last 3 lessons, right? I'm also extremely imperative that we see him as our healer, particularly when we live in a cultural context that has so normalized brokenness that people are willing to settle for not living their full lives, right? Expecting everyone to accommodate your brokenness and be unwilling to address it. I want everybody to love me, but I don't want to work on the me that I want everybody to love. I want everybody to love me for me, right? I want them to put forth an effort to love me, but I don't want to put forth equal effort in working on the me that I want them to love. And what the Bible teaches is balance. That I am to love you for you, faults and all. Yet you and I are also to submit ourselves to God's sanctifying works, right? So that we allow him to work on us, work on our minds, work on the me who I want you to love, all right? And listen, so it won't be so hard to love me tomorrow as it is today. Yes, this text introduces us to the God who heals. This name is Jehovah Rapha. We introduce Israel in the backdrop of this. The Old Testament, they were performing miracles where they were in Egyptian bondage for over 400 years, but Moses came and freed them, right? This is what happens, though. As Moses leads them out, literally on foot, Pharaoh changes his mind and he goes after them. Israel gets to the point where they're being persuaded by Pharaoh, or they're being pursued by Pharaoh, and the ocean is in front of them, or a sea, all right? They're trapped. They can't go backwards and they can't go forward. So Moses asked God, what do you want me to do? But God responds with a question. He said, what's in your hands? Meaning you're talking to me because you feel like you don't already possess, have in your possession what you need to overcome this obstacle. Moses said, I have a staff. God said, I'm getting ready to show you how to use what you already have in your hand. So you're going to get through this without outside resources. Come on, somebody missed it. As a Christian community, Total Transformation, you're getting ready to go through seasons without selling dinners and without doing yard sales and asking people outside of the community to donate. Come on, somebody. He's saying to you individually that you're going to take that degree that you already have, sister, and work that thing. And you're going to take the relationships that you already have, brother, and I'm going to take what you already have, and we're going to work this thing. So the text says that Moses raises his staff and stretches out his hand. He raises his staff and stretches out his hand. He raises his staff and stretches out his hand. So they experience some miracles from God, but it has to stretch you. Purpose requires stretching. Ask Jesus, what did he get stretched? They hung him high and they stretched him wide, because purpose requires stretching. God will stretch you in ways that you never thought you'd be stretched. He'll stretch you mentally. He'll stretch you with responsibility. You'll be carrying things that you never thought that you could carry. You'll be doing things that you never thought that you could do on your own. You will be holding burdens that you never thought that you could hold. You'll be walking people through seasons and situations that you never thought that you could be walking through with them, because purpose will stretch you. I will stretch your capacity. I'll stretch your intellect. I'll stretch your skill set. So he stretches you. And we often hear that after the stretching, that the Red Sea parts. But that's not what happens, right? That's how we were taught, but that's not what happens, all right? There was something that happened before the Red Sea parts. What happens, Pastor Micah? Somebody asked me again, what happened? Come on. Watch what happens right here in Exodus chapter 14, verse 19. Exodus chapter 14, verse 19. It says, "Then the angel of the Lord, who had been traveling in front of Israel's army, withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them." Did y'all see that? Did y'all hear what I just said? So Moses raises his staff and stretches his hand. Then he says, the angel of the Lord that was traveling in front of them moved behind them. I hope somebody catches this today. I hope you get this. Verse 20 says, he got behind them and he got between them and Pharaoh. It says that the cloud caused it to be dark on one side, but light on the other side. They were close to each other, but didn't run into each other all night long. And the reason some of you, like me, are here today is because you serve a God who knows how to switch positions. He was in the front of them, leading them, but then he got behind them and got between them and what was trying to get them. Because there are certain things that are close to you, but can't get to you because God is between you and them. Are y'all hearing what I'm saying today? You wouldn't be able to sleep at night if you knew how close you came to this thing. You wouldn't be able to rest well if you knew how close you came to that. But God knows how to get between you and what's after you. Who am I preaching to today? Who am I preaching to? So he got between Pharaoh and Israel. I believe this is the hedge that Satan was talking about when he had a conversation with God about Job. When God asked Satan what he was doing, he said he was going to and fro throughout the earth, attempting to find somebody whose life that he could mess up. And God asked, have you considered my servant Job? He said, yes, I considered him, but I couldn't get to him. He said, because there was a hedge of protection. There was something between me and him, and I couldn't get through it. And God says, okay, I'm going to give you permission. See, somebody should have started dancing and shouting right there. Pastor Micah is shouting over that? Yes. Don't shout because the devil got to him. Shout because he had to get permission. Oh yes, because the only way he gets through if God opens the gate of the hedge. Follow me, y'all. So after this happens, the Bible says that the Red Sea parts, and then Moses walks through on dry ground and the Israelites follow him. Y'all, now I'm not naive enough to believe that everybody in this virtual room watching on live believes that the Red Sea actually parted. Now, I believe it, but it would be pastoral naivete for me to believe that everybody believes that. So until you get to where I am and you actually believe it, don't allow the details of the text to cause you to miss the message of the text. There is value in this text for everybody. All right. Where's the value, Pastor Micah? The value is this. God enabled them to walk through what other people drown in. That's the lesson. All right. That's the point. And God will enable you to walk through what others drown in. Just because they drowned in it doesn't mean that you have to drown in it. Just because they didn't make it through doesn't mean that you can't. The text says that they walked through on dry land. Why is that detail important? Because it should be muddy. Did you get that? It should have been muddy. If somebody had been in mud, all right, and they come into your house, they track where they've been into where they are. Did you hear what I just said? So you don't even have to know where they've been, but if you hang out with them long enough, mud is everywhere, right? So I can tell where you've been based on what you've tracked into my life. So watch this now. This is important. They walk through on dry ground, meaning that when they get to the other side, there's no evidence of where they walked through, what they walked through. Come on, y'all, talk to me. Based on what I just walked through, I should be much dirtier than I am. I came through some dirt that you can't even see right now. I should be tracking stuff all over the place. Come on, y'all won't talk to me. Talk to me through the screen. Where are the believers that will say I should be tracking stuff all in the church, all at work, all into my relationships? Hallelujah. They walk through on dry ground. You've been through it, and we look at you now, and there's no evidence of it. We wouldn't even believe that you used to be in a gang. We wouldn't even believe that you used to be on drugs. We wouldn't even believe that you were insecure, because now your head is held high, and you know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you're clear on your calling. You're focused on your purpose, and you have a sense of self. You're rooted and grounded in the revelation that you're God, that you're God's child. And we would never be able to see that because you didn't track any of that in here, into this virtual room, into our lives, because God allowed you to walk through your path and he made it dry ground instead of mud. So they get to the other side. Pharaoh sees that they've done what they've done, and he attempts to do the same thing, because this is what he's thinking. It split, right? They walk when it splits, because once it splits, it's no time to be talking. It's time to walk, because God is a God of timing, right? For everything there is a time and season. And you can be too busy talking sometimes when you should be walking, by the time you get ready to walk, the Red Sea is no longer open. Is there anybody that senses that 2024 is your walking season? I'm not even telling you what I'm getting ready to do. When this year is over, you will see it. I'm not even talking about my New Year's resolutions, y'all. Watch me in 6 months or 12 months and you'll see it. So Pharaoh tries to imitate what they do, because he's thinking they walked. I have chariots, and I should be able to do what they did much faster than them, right? I have trained soldiers who are conditioned that they can do all of this stuff. They can move through swiftly. So he tries to imitate, watch this, what he observed. He had chariots and he had soldiers, but the one thing he didn't have was the thing he actually needed. He didn't have Moses' word. See, when you try to follow a word that God didn't give you, you drown. God told them to leave their job. He didn't tell you. You can't follow a word that God didn't give you. You can't allow your ambitions to follow a word that God didn't give you. You can't allow your agitation or your current season to allow you to follow a word that God didn't give you. You can't allow your arrogance. Oh, Moses did it, so can I. Don't allow your arrogance to make you follow a word God didn't give you. Because Moses had a word, he had favor. Favor is the passenger of purpose. Whenever you operate in purpose, favor accompanies you. What does favor do? It makes you the exception. You're not supposed to part the Red Sea, but favor makes you the exception to the rule. You're not supposed to come out of that neighborhood, but favor makes sure you're the exception. You're not supposed to get through school without the support you need, but favor makes sure you're the exception. You're not supposed to climb up the corporate ladder being a woman or being a minority, but favor makes you the exception. Who am I preaching to today? Most businesses, even most church plants, fail within the first 3 years of starting them. But favor can make you be the exception. Y'all, we are the exceptions. So Pharaoh's army drowns in the Red Sea. And when Israel witnesses this, they just praise God. Exodus chapter 15, verse 20. My Pentecostals are going to y'all going to love this. It says, Miriam, Moses' sister, got a tambourine. As a matter of fact, y'all, if you got a tambourine at home, I want you to blow the dust off of it and bring it whenever we start having our in-person services. All right? Because some of the enemies that you've seen in the past, you will see no more. Hallelujah. They praised, they celebrated, they were excited. Let's pick up at verse 22. It says in verse 22, then Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. And for 3 days, they traveled in the desert without finding water. So here, listen here. So they're in the desert for 3 days, y'all, and there's no water. Then someone says, do you see that over there? So they got excited again. They're happy. I know God would make a way, right? I know God would open a door. I knew God would do it, right? They get over to the water and they drink it, and they it's salty. It's undrinkable. Now they're embarrassed. I'm embarrassed because I testified about how good God is and how God made a way. And the people that watched me testify that I testified to, now they're waiting on an explanation. They wait on an explanation because I told them I claimed it and I didn't get it. Now I'm hoping that you don't ask me about it, because now this is the way they feel. And we need to be honest about this. They felt teased. If I can't drink the water, then why would you show it to me, God? God, don't tease me like that. If they're not going to hire me, then don't let them call me in for an interview. I'd rather not get my hopes up. If they're not going to approve me, then I don't want to get the sense that they're leaning towards approving me. Has anybody ever felt that way before? But God never teases you. When you feel teased, God's not trying to agitate you. He may be trying to stimulate your faith. It's what I call faith checkpoints. When you run a marathon, there are checkpoints, right? To get refreshed, to revitalize yourself. And God would tell you when your faith is getting weary, right? He might test you sometimes. And sometimes he shows you a glimpse of what he can do. Not to tease you, but just to remind you that I still got this. So the reason they call you in for the interview wasn't because the job was for you. I need to show you that I can make your phone ring whenever I get ready. I want to show you how easy it is for me to just turn this thing around, right? Just like that. I'm not teasing you, but I want to show you that when I get ready to make it happen, I will move heaven and earth to make it happen. Come on. So chill out now. It's not time. It's not your time yet. But when I get ready, it's that easy. So the water is bitter and they're disappointed. They're disappointed because they didn't expect that. Their disappointment made them like the water. They got bitter, right? And whenever you get bitter in one season, all right, because you're disappointed in another, right? And the people in church, listen, people in church get disappointed all the time. Those who are bitter with men or women have been disappointed by men or women in another season, because bitterness is like a scab of disappointment. Now, this is what's troubling for me, because it's a faith issue for them, right? They're disappointed so much that they start grumbling to Moses. Moses cries out to God. God says, okay, take some wood and throw it in the water. Watch the similarities here. They are disappointed, operating in doubt about a water problem when they just witnessed another water miracle, right? And God is saying, it's only been 3 days. You just saw what I could do with water. I just showed you that I'm a water worker, right? And you're running into another water problem and now you're tripping. But you just saw what I can do with water. So he says, Moses, I had you to raise your staff and stretch out your hand and split the Red Sea. Now I want you to take the wood and put it in the water. And I'm going to make undrinkable water drinkable. I'm not going to bother that, y'all. I'm not going to bother that because the wood makes it better. Come on, somebody. Listen, I wouldn't be here today if God hadn't thrown my lamb on the wood. He threw Jesus on the wood for me, and the wood makes it better. Watch this. This is what's powerful. All of this happens, and then God makes a statement that seems to have nothing to do with what's going on in the text. This is what I've spent all of this time trying to get to. God makes this statement in verse 26. He says, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commandments and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians. For the Lord, I am the Lord who heals you. But the text is about water, right? Nobody is sick. Why is he talking about healing here, y'all? That doesn't make sense, does it? God's always makes sense, though. God always makes sense. It's not about it might not make sense to us, but God never contradicts reason. He transcends reason because he thinks on a level that we can't reach sometimes, right? So why is he talking about healing? And healing has nothing to do with what's going on in the text. Well, if you read verse 25, you will see why he's talking about healing, y'all. In verse 25, he makes a statement that puts this whole text into perspective. See, this miracle had nothing to do with water. This miracle was a test. Read verse 25. It says, then Moses cries out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became fit to drink. There the Lord issues a ruling and instructions for them to put them to rest, right? Put them to about water because he wants to talk to them about something else. All of this is a test because if I can convince you that I can do this, then I believe that I can do anything. So I'm just training you on the water because I'm going to need you to believe me for something that's more significant, more important, and more consequential than the water. But I need to use something that doesn't matter that much for you to see something that's going to matter a lot in order to train your brain and train your mind and build your faith for something that's going to matter much more. So I take you through these little things like water miracles. I build your faith so that when you get ready for the big, you don't have to learn on things that are so consequential to your life. So when God says, I'm the Lord that heals, I'm more than the God that wants to deal with your bondage. You're out now. I want to deal with your brokenness. Because I didn't send Moses just because if you deal with the brokenness, you're free. Because your brokenness is your bondage. So I don't deal with your issues. It's going to become your bondage. You will be out of Egypt, saved out of Egypt, out of Egypt. You're going to relationship that you put your hands on. You're going to heaven, but you're going to tear up every relationship on the way there. You're going to close every door that I open for you. You're going to ruin your name. You're going to ruin your reputation if I don't deal with your brokenness. You're so hurt that you're hard now. But if I don't deal with your brokenness, you end up like David. And thank God for people in David's life like Joab, Because when David was going through all of that stuff with his son Absalom, Joab said, listen, man,